Okay. Hi. If you're watching this, then you're currently enrolled in PS 398, which is entitled Strategic International Relations. And I'm your professor, Rob Carroll. I know you have a lot of decisions that you need to make between now and the start of the fall semester in terms of what your schedule is going to look like, but I'm afraid that I don't have my syllabi all the way finalized just yet. So you might not have all the information that you might need to make those decisions. But it seemed like a good idea to check in with you this way, so that you might get a sense about what you'll need to expect from the class. So, welcome to PS 398. You may have already noticed that the class is listed as online. That's true. This is a fully online class, which introduces some complications both in terms of scale and the material that we'll be talking about, but I think that we're going to be able to make the best of it. We're going to employ a flipped classroom in this class. You might not have ever had a flipped classroom, and I've actually never taught one before either, so let me tell you what that means just so that you might get up to speed and I might actually know what I'm talking about for once. So a flipped classroom, you might think about it with respect to a traditional classroom. So in a traditional classroom, which is every class I've ever taught and taken, and probably the vast majority of the classes that you've taken, if not every class. So what happens in a traditional classroom is you come to class at a certain time that's scheduled. I'm not trying to make this opaque, like there's a scheduled lecture time, and then you come, and you sit down in the lecture, and then I, the professor, bloviate for a while. It might be a traditional lecture where I'm just sort of talking directly at you, or if we're being honest, I'm probably talking at the floor, I'm talking at the ceiling, I'm talking at the back wall, I'm talking at the clock over there so that I can see just how short of content I'm going to be. But regardless, you've come to class, and the point of you coming to class is to sit and generally passively accept the information that I'm sending to you via that format. And then you go home, and ideally, you spend a couple hours a week on the class at home, either reading ahead or reading behind, so that, maybe the reading makes more sense after you've heard us talk about it for a while. You might have homework, you might have to do some research or write a paper. Regardless, a lot of the actual learning that you do in these classes takes place at home, right? And that is unsupervised. You might feel very alone during those moments, at least in the run-up to an exam. I always notice that people are doing a whole lot of learning by themselves at home and then sending me harried emails at 3 in the morning saying, "Oh, I finally understand what it is that I don't understand, so let me ask you this question about what I don't understand." And what we're trying to gun for in a flipped classroom is that you know what you don't know when we're together. So in a flipped classroom, you'll watch a video like this one prior to class, and have all the lecture content for the week in it. So you won't have to come and listen to me at lecture. Instead, you'll use that time to say, this is what I didn't understand about the lecture, and you'll have a better sense about what that is because you'll also be completing a weekly problem set. Oh no! Right? Like, I know that that's terrifying, but these are not going to be really big problem sets. This is just enough to make sure that you are keeping up, you are aware of what is happening with our material, you are prepared to advance to the next topic, because this is a topic, which we'll talk about here in a second. This topic is more cumulative. This is more cumulative than you realize. And so if you get behind early on, we don't want you to not get complete understanding of some of the later topics just because you didn't have a comprehensive picture about what was happening early on in the class. So there'll be a weekly problem set. It won't be huge. You'll be able to drop some. You don't need to be on point every week in order to get pretty good at strategic international relations. And thankfully, you'll have time to work on that problem set during the scheduled class time on Monday and Wednesday. You'll suddenly understand what you're not getting once you're trying to work through problems yourself. So what's the material? So strategic international relations, that's sort of a It's a weird name for a class, right? This is my second time teaching the class, the first time during an epidemic, as you may have guessed. And like what's interesting about strategic international relations is it's both a broad idea and it's a narrow idea. It's both a substantive idea and it's a methodological idea. And international relations itself lends itself to so many different ways of looking at it, even within the strategic point of view. And hopefully you'll get a sense as we continue to change camera angles at the world. We'll be looking at it from so many different points of view, and hopefully during all of that lens switching, you'll get a sense about how the tools that we use, the methods that we employ to understand, you'll get a sense about how those things port from one sort of scholarly international relations question to another sort of scholarly international relations question. But we'll also be looking at individual leaders' decisions. We'll be looking at opposition groups' decisions in the context of civil disorder. We'll be looking at two countries that are fighting with one another, and we're not going to worry about the leaders. We'll be thinking about the countries as individuals. Alliances, there's all these levels of analysis, international institutions, all of these different levels, all of these different phenomena, you can go as low as the individual. I don't know where this camera cuts off, so let's pretend that this is the bottom, okay? So you can go as low as the individual level. We don't have like organ level international relations, like your liver and your brain, that's all you. We're not gonna break that down. So we have individual level, and we can go from the individual level to the group level, or maybe a kin group level, a clan level, a village level. We can go up to some organized political level, like a state or something smaller than a state, like a region that's semi-autonomous. We can go up to the nation-state level. That's been sort of the default setting for a lot of international relations, is we worry about countries and what they do. But country level and individual level are similar in the sense that sometimes we think about the country as an entity, and sometimes we think about the country only with respect to its leader. And all of these different entities are engaged in a lot of different strategic interaction. And that strategic interaction takes place in a couple of different ways. It can take place at a very disaggregated level in the absence of property rights under international anarchy where no agreements are guaranteed to uphold. They might occur at a regional level. They might transpire in the context of an international organization like the United Nations or the International Court of Justice. They might be regional organizations even, like the European Union. And then there's this big international system thing that we oftentimes use to be the top of the ladder in terms of the broadest context or the broadest level of analysis, where we're not even thinking about individual states at that point in time. We're thinking about the nature of the system. So all of these different kinds of actors and different kinds of contexts, given all of that heterogeneity in terms of who are the actors and what are the contexts or structures in which they interact, it's very natural to wonder if there's any way to come up with a unified picture of all of that. Sort of one ideally simple, but no promises, but one understandable catalog of approaches, ideas, theories, techniques that can unify them in a way that's useful to us, right? So the goal here isn't to come up with a theory of everything, but the goal is to try to find theories that can port well from individual level to the international system. And that's a really ambitious goal. Thankfully, and I'm not embellishing here, over the millennia, the strategic point of view has been developed as one way to try to make sense of all of these various levels, all these various kinds of actors, all of these various contexts in which they interact. So this is a very old tradition that goes all the way back to Thucydides, at least, is the classic example with his treatment of the Peloponnesian War. This gets into Hobbes and Machiavelli, and then suddenly this tradition emerged of strategic international relations that wasn't even just everybody that I've mentioned up to this point is viewed as a realist of one form or another, sort of capital R international relations type realism. Realism is neither necessary nor sufficient for taking a strategic point of view. Suddenly, the method employed by realists, this very strategic sort of method, looking at the world in terms of power dynamics and trying to figure out how to do what is best for the actor in question, right? I mean, that's Machiavelli's The Prince is just sort of a way to think about the best tactics that a prince can employ to try to thrive in a gross, nasty world. You don't have to be a realist to be worried about strategy, though. You don't have to think that it's a gross, nasty world or that power dynamics are the only things that matter. These things are related, but they certainly aren't required. So this strategic point of view has then emerged as sort of a descendant of realism. There's realism that isn't as strategic as what we'll be talking about, and there is strategic international relations that isn't at all realist. So we have this great separation, or at the very least a recognition that the substance of an ism and the method of an ism don't have to always go together. And so strategic international relations is sort of in that tradition, but it has cast off some of its substantive, I don't want to say vestiges, because there's still plenty of realist strategic international relations, but you get the idea that they don't always have to go together. So what we'll be talking about in this class is a particular part of strategic international relations. We'll be talking about the language of international relations that has emerged in the last, depending on how we look at it, 75 to 100 years of rationalist, mathematical, don't freak out, it's okay, mathematical, game theoretic international relations. So I will be trying to teach you as many little models as I can to make important substantive points about this strategic tradition of international relations in all of its forms. One of the great successes in international relations in the last 30 to 50 years has been the development of this wonderful unified language, where words like reputation or commitment, informational asymmetries, bargaining, these words that play such an important role in the everyday language of international relations have been encoded into precise, understandable mathematical forms. And these precise, understandable mathematical forms have allowed us to come up with a deeper understanding and even appreciation, if we're going to be honest, a deeper appreciation for the importance of these concepts. So I don't think, for example, that the literature on state reputation would be nearly as important as it is in international relations these days had it not been for the development of game theoretic mathematical models of reputation and how one acquires reputation and how one utilizes reputation after having acquired reputation. So when you open a newspaper and turn to the world section, chances are good you'll see either the word reputation explicitly or a lot of people thinking about the importance of reputation. And that might not have been the case had it not been for the development of the concept in this theoretical laboratory of strategic international relations. So given that I'm going to be trying to show you a lot of the actual models that one uses to develop these important concepts in international relations and then try to map them back to reality, this class necessarily is going to have a little bit more of a mathematical flavor than you may have expected. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. It's not going to be anything too esoteric. You can complicate these models as much as you want to by layering more mathematical nuances upon them, but the basic points that we're going to try to be making will require little more than a cursory introduction to the basic tools of game theory. So you'll be getting 2 for 1 on this. You'll be getting just enough game theory to be able to understand and appreciate these important concepts of international relations a little bit more. And you'll also be learning enough international relations and the associated theoretical concepts to be able to fully appreciate these stark models, which in the absence of our imbuing them with substantive meaning, they're just mathematical objects. They're just rocks, right? It's incumbent upon us, humans, I mean human beings who see mathematical models of empirical reality. It's incumbent upon us to say, yes, I see this and it seems like a model of 2 countries interacting with one another. It's incumbent upon us to breathe life into these models. I really do think that this class is really great because you get a chance to see both sides of the coin while appreciating each for the other. Now, because I'm going to be teaching the class that way, This is one reason for the flipped classroom. It makes sure that you have a chance to think about the content, both substantively and technically. You have a chance to absorb all of that as best you can, from an hour or so of television. And then you'll have a chance to come and actually doodle around with models in ways that hopefully will increase both your technical and substantive understanding of these things. That'll be the way that we proceed, is you'll get a problem set every week with just a few problems, just to make sure that you're seeing how the machine works, this mathematical machine of game theoretic strategic international relations, but also to make sure that you're stopping to pause to appreciate these wonderful, beautiful concepts that play such a key role in both formal and informal discourse in international relations. Consequently, these 15 problem sets, of which you'll be able to drop a few, these will constitute the lion's share of your grade. And if you've put in a lot of effort into those throughout the 15 weeks, then the take-home final that you'll get, to repeat, take-home final that you'll get, shouldn't seem very daunting. I'm starting to turn into an old person. You can tell when I've been an old person for a while. But one sign that somebody is turning into an old person is they begin to talk about how it's the humidity and not just the heat. Or I sort of knew that I was going the wrong way in life when I started to talk more about dew points than I did about temperatures. You don't need to know that much. Just open the window and see how it feels out there. Well, today it feels like... That's okay. You guys are working hard. I'm going to work hard too. To help facilitate and keep things organized, we're going to use a wonderful online service called Piazza. And what's great about Piazza is, first of all, you can get the app on your phone. It's really straightforward to use. It's very intuitive. But every time I post a lecture video like this one or the problem set, that will open up an opportunity for you to ask questions related to that video or related to that problem set. And what's great about that, 2 wikis start to answer the question that has been asked. One of the wikis is controlled by students, and the other wiki is controlled by the grader and myself. And so whenever a question gets asked, I will actually set a timer to allow the students to try to answer the question first, because you answering each other's questions is the best path for you to... It's difficult for me to have the perspective of a first-time viewer of this, right? So I've been doing game theoretic international relations for 10 years. I mean, it was already bad when I talked about the humidity. I've been doing this for a while, and no matter how hard I try, I'm not going to be able to view this from the same point of view that you do. And so it's really great for you to get answers from your classmates, and for the classmates that are doing the answering to enhance their own understanding by teaching. But that said, if we get to an impasse on that, then it's very straightforward for the grader or for me to answer the question with just all of the authority that you would expect from that sort of situation. We want you to ask questions. You should be asking questions. If there was one thing that I would change, it would be that we would all be more okay with looking like silly people asking silly questions. There is no silly questions. There's just different levels of understanding of something, and there's a process, right? So you come to understand something slowly. So I'm no better equipped to understand how states interact or how to understand how they interact from the strategic point of view than you are. I've just been doing this for a while in a relatively dedicated way, right? So it isn't any difference in aptitude or even in interest. It's just that this is what I've been doing. I want you to view yourself as beginning a journey. You don't have to travel that road as far as I have, right? You could also go way further. It's not that hard, I assure you. But this is all just a journey. And so if you have to ask early introductory questions, heaven forbid, so that you can get early introductory understanding, heaven forbid, of really difficult, interesting, thorny, complicated, theoretical concepts, heaven forbid, then ask it, right? And so on Piazza, we'll actually allow you to ask questions anonymously if you need to. I know that everybody worries about feeling stupid, for lack of a better word, but you're not stupid, you know? Stupid is not asking questions. And you might worry, oh my goodness, what if the professor or somebody else thinks that I'm stupid for the question that I asked? Well, there's only one thing worse than that, and that's the professor or somebody else thinking that you're vapid, thinking that you don't even have the energy to come up with a question, right? You're not even interested enough to have a question. It's a protection mechanism. We all do it. I still do it. Everybody does it. It's okay. But, try your best not to here, and I'll try my best to facilitate an open, freewheeling question zone so that you can ask questions, I can answer questions, I can ask questions, you can answer them. We're all going to be learning from each other through this. Now, because we're going to be learning from each other, and because the class content is going to be coming to you through videos like this one, a lot of the traditional textbook sort of thing goes out the window too, right? So I will not be assigning a textbook. My hope is that I'll be able to provide you with enough content with a sufficiently unified set of notation, like the symbols that you use to write these things down, that you won't have to complicate that picture with a textbook. That said, a textbook can be really useful, and it's great to get multiple points of view. I mean, there's a reason I have all those game theory books back there, right? There's no way that what I just pointed at was actually the game theory books. Let's is that right? We'll see. We won't be using straight game theory textbooks because what we're going to be talking about is far too IR to worry just about a straight game theory textbook. And we won't have any straight IR textbooks because what we're going to be doing is going to be entirely too game theoretic for an IR textbook. So I'll come up with a list of recommended texts both on the game theory side and on the international relations side. And you're free to look through those recommendations and see if there's a good fit for you. You can buy used copies. You can buy whatever copy you find online. That's all fine. And if none of the things that get recommended seem to really resonate with you, let me know and we can start a dialogue and maybe try to find something better. Lord knows there's not a shortage of textbooks in either game theory or international relations, but at the undergraduate level, it's pretty tricky to find a really on point all the way international relations, game theory, strategic international relations textbook. So who might be an especially good fit for this class? International relations students should be exposed to the strategic point of view, both substantively and methodologically, that is, both the concepts of strategic international relations and the game theoretic tools used to develop those concepts. I think everybody in international relations ought to see that. That's only one tradition out of several. So there's game theoretic international relations, the strategic or rationalist international relations. There's sort of psychological international relations. Sometimes this gets lumped in with behavioral. So we think about this from the point of view of how psychological processes work, how perception or misperception works, how hot or cold cognition works. This is another point of view that I think every international relations student ought to see. You might even think about a deeply historical way about looking at international relations, and sort of even social constructive approaches. So strategic, rationalist, whatever the case may be, international relations is one important tradition within a set of traditions. And so consequently, I think that a good, broad undergraduate liberal arts education in international relations should include a deep, thorough, substantive, and methodological treatment of strategic, rationalist international relations. And that's what I aim to provide for you here. So if you're interested in theoretical international relations, IR theory, even if it's just informal IR theory, this is what made me want to go to grad school in the first place. I think that this is a really important class and you would be an excellent fit for it because you'll have a chance to see how things fit together within this one domain. One remarkable thing is how many international relations scholars of prominence did not begin in international relations. Many of them actually were hard science majors. So Hans Morgenthau, for example, came from the biological sciences before he decided to sit down and write some of the most important treatises of the 20th century with respect to realism in in international relations. So if you're a hard science major or an engineering major that has labored to acquire technical skills along with all of the important concepts of your chosen discipline, but you have all of these wonderful skills that you've worked very hard to acquire, and then you open the newspaper and you say, boy, there's a big international world out there, and I understand a lot of things, but I don't think I have as complete a picture of international relations as I could, given what you know what it is to know something after acquiring all of these skills, right? So what is it to know something about international relations the same way? Now, we don't have to build bridges that don't collapse. You know, we have a little bit more leeway with what we do with our theories. That said, these tools that we've developed over the millennia have really helped us to gain a nice understanding of international processes. And I think that we might be able to enhance your average hard science or engineering major's understanding of international processes by helping them to see how mathematics relates to it all. So if you're a hard science major or an engineering major and you're curious about international processes and what it is to know something about them, then this class might be a really great fit for you. But it's also important to have humility. And so part of this is a plea to ask any of you that might be interested to contribute to the ongoing conceptual development within all of international relations, and in particular within this rationalist tradition. So there are things that we know about international relations, and there are things that we don't know. So suppose that you gave me a data set that had a lot of relevant information about how international processes were playing out. They might be political processes in organizations or state to state. They might be military processes like arming yourself, sending your army to a different part of the globe to try to project power, the actual use of force. They might be economic processes, trade, finance. So imagine that we had data on on the entire status quo. We just took a snapshot of the globe, and we have a giant data set of what's happening. All of these little processes, right? So my mom bought this mug, right? And this mug, does it say? There's an excellent chance that this mug was made in another country. This is a tiny little bit of international relations when you think about it. Now think about every exchange at this level. Every economic exchange, every political exchange, every cultural exchange, every financial exchange, whatever. So we took a snapshot of all of those. Then you said, well, if you tell me how many wars there will be in the world next year using these data, but I wouldn't be able to get it, right? So the machine that we're building, this unified set of tools, this beautiful, elegant mathematical apparatus that helps us to make sense of trillions of tiny interactions happening in real time. This machine isn't ready yet. It's useful for us to explain history. You might show me a given war or a given sanction or a given bilateral free trade agreement or something like that, and we might be able to use a model, a mathematical model, to help understand what happened. But for purposes of just raw prediction, tell me what's going to happen in the future, we're not ready. And if we were ready, if we ran machine learning algorithms to help us to predict what would happen in the future, the answers, which is to say the models, the machine learning algorithms that would do the best job of predicting the future, the answers, the solutions to those optimization problems would be so complicated, so embarrassingly complicated, so dense, thousands and thousands of estimated parameters and answers so dense and complicated we wouldn't be able to make any sense out of it. You know, we're not just going to get some simple equation that tells us how the entire world works. And the answers are so complicated that it's embarrassing to think about the act of making sense of it, but that's our job. This class might be a great way for you to help to get your feet wet in this giant, exciting, humiliating, terrifying, awesome, super great, did I say humiliating? Humiliating interaction that we're having with ourselves. That got meta. If you're interested in that, or you think that you might be interested in that, or you just want to entertain the thought of that for a while, then this class might be a really great fit for you. So what can you expect from me? I've got to make, this is an introductory video. I need to make 15 lectures covering all of this stuff. And as you may have guessed by now, I have precisely zero idea what I'm doing with that. So this is my second YouTube video. I made a video similar to this for my other class. I don't know. If you're not interested in this, you can fast forward a little bit. So what happened was, in early July, I tried a trial run of teaching a class remotely because I wasn't sure if the class was going to be remote or not remote, and I didn't know what teaching undergrads technical material remotely looked like. I got out a document camera and I started moving it all over this whiteboard that I have on my desk. I have like a little piece of whiteboard paper. So I was jumping around the desk with this document camera, and the lighting was bad and it was taking me forever. I was doing an introductory lecture. The first lecture we're going to have, try not to get too excited, is sets, functions, and logic. Sort of the basics of how to encode the world in mathematical terms. How do we convert this big reality into symbols? And I was talking about statements, which are the building block of elementary logic. And so the example statement that I was using, which we might use next time, was the United States is a democracy. Which that's an example of a logical statement. It could be true or false, but not both. So I was writing out the United States is a democracy. You've been through this sort of thing before. And it took me 30 seconds to say it. Clear enough that anybody could understand. And then I noticed that my handwriting was awful. I'm not going to be able to remedy that. And I'm going to be honest with you, I freaked out. I didn't know, and I still don't know, what to expect moving forward. So the University of Illinois is a great public flagship research university with tens of thousands of students. Our political science department has hundreds of majors. And the things that we're teaching you are increasingly technical, increasingly abstract, increasingly mathematical in many times. So the things that we're teaching you are getting, I don't know if they're more complicated, there's just more to them. Meanwhile, education seems to be something that's being converted a little bit more this way, where I'm talking to you sometime in late July, and you're watching on some screen sometime in August. And maybe even later, you might be watching everybody will have forgotten about this by 2021, but you might be watching this month later or something. And I don't know how we're going to marry, this is an R1 university, and your main advantage in going to a school like the U of I is learning from people who are doing cutting edge research that are changing the discipline that they teach so that what you're learning is dripping with newness, right? So how do we teach you these super new things that we're getting out on the research end at scale when there's, I think this class has a maximum enrollment of 70. How do we do all that? And then the pandemic hit, and it became very obvious that whatever methods I had thought up would be woefully insufficient for the job. So all this to say, over the last 3 weeks, I've converted my home office into a little studio. Not a very good studio, but it's our studio all the same. And I've learned as much as I can about how to make these videos, because I like to learn on YouTube, right? So we all learn stuff on YouTube, or we learn stuff through videos, right? So I love to cook, and all of my favorite food personalities make wonderful video content to teach you how to cook. I like chess matches, and there's wonderful chess channels that have annotated games or commentary on games as they're happening. There's all these wonderful lessons to learn via this format, and unfortunately, the tools at your average assistant professor's disposal are not intimately related to getting the most out of this. So I've kind of had this awful crash course over the last 3 weeks. And it really has only been 3 weeks. It's hard for me. You don't know this, right? Because you're watching this for the first time. But for 3 weeks, I've been just completely freaking out, putting up bookshelves and drilling holes in them. I don't drill holes. You don't understand. I don't drill holes, right? Look at these hands. I don't drill a lot of holes. And there I was just dragging a bookshelf in there, drilling holes, getting lighting. And I still don't know what I'm doing because it's not something you can learn in 3 weeks, right? So what I'm trying to say, incredibly and elegantly, is that you can expect effort, but you shouldn't expect perfection. Maybe because I've had a chance to learn so much from videos in the past, be they cooking videos or how to grow a beard videos or chess videos or how to make a video videos. All those good examples, maybe some of that seeped into my head, and so I'll do my best to be clear. I'll do my best to be entertaining. I'll do my best to load a lot of content. What's great about this is, so for a short video like this, I might record 2 hours of content, just talking to the can for 2 hours and edit it down. And what's great is the end product is far denser. You will get far more per minute from watching a video like this. You might have to watch it twice. You'll get far more per minute from a video like this than watching me stammer and oh, what was that about? Oh, I forgot. Oh, shoot. All the things the professors do during a lecture, and you're like, I would like to have learned something that 2 minutes instead of you sitting there weeping trying to figure out the thing that you couldn't remember. You can also expect me to try to deal with you as if you are a human. I was going to say as if you are a human being, as if you're not a human being. I will view you as a human being, and I will act in good faith with you. And I will assume that you are acting in good faith with me, and I will assume that you are assuming good faith. Oh, this is a particularly important time to try to view you as a human being, because being a college student is hard no matter what. I've learned that since becoming a professor way more than I knew it when I was a student myself. If only because since then electricity has been invented and fire in the wheel. I know that there are some particular challenges at the moment, and I couldn't pretend to know them all because I'm in Urbana in my pajama bottoms, not being a college student, and you're somewhere, who knows, somewhere on this earth. Many of you are in Illinois, but many of you are in other countries. I can't pretend to know what you're going through, okay? The only thing I can do is tell you that I will view you as a human being, and I will try to act in good faith. So if you have a problem that goes beyond, oh, I haven't watched any of the videos, and I haven't done any of the problem sets, and I haven't come to class, and I need this class to graduate. So if you have a problem other than those, if you have a real problem that requires somebody that will view you as a human being and will act in good faith to try to find a fair, maybe not ideal from your point of view, but we'll try to find a fair solution to whatever problem it is that you might have. I'm not telling you to trust me right now, but I hope that over time you will come to trust me enough to feel like I will act in good faith with you. And over time, I will assume that you are acting in good faith with me until shown otherwise. This is a really important time for us to be patient with one another and understanding with one another, and I will try to be those things with you. And please be patient and understanding with me while I try to be patient and understanding with you. And in fact, the biggest PS 398 no-no is not trying to see the humanity in other people. I'm more concerned with how you treat each other and how you treat our grader. So if you are anything short of patient, understanding, and generous with your fellow students and with the grader, then that is going to be great. You deserve a lot, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you get to be impatient with other people that deserve a lot. So let's all try our best to have a really great collaborative environment. Let's do our best to help each other, to answer each other's questions, which is a win-win, right? Somebody gets their question answered and somebody gets the chance to answer a question and learn something. I also want to express my gratitude for being part of the community at this particular moment and for considering taking PS 398. Obviously, these videos I'm going to be making are brand new. This is a new class. This is not going to be polished. I just begged you to be okay with all the screw-ups I'm going to make. I want to let you know that that's greatly appreciated if you stay. I'm sorry that you have to be part of the process of getting this all together in this crazy year of 2020 that we've been having. I wish that I had a completely finished product to give to you so that you didn't have to put up with any of the little annoyances that are going to emerge. I'm sorry to tell you, but they're going to happen. The classes that you have taken that have been more polished, unless they were taught by pedagogical prodigies, I'd like to meet some of these people, have themselves been the finished product of lots of prototyping, lots of iteration, lots of experimentation. And so you have been the beneficiary of some other students, some previous students' travails. And somewhere there's a future student who's thinking about taking PS 398 in fall 2021. And I'd like to think that the class will be better that time, not just because I'll have had a chance to edit out all of this stupidity that I'm throwing at you, but also because you will have been part of this process. Now, I'm talking into a lens right now. This is my iPad. But I mean you. You know? That PS 398 student from fall 2021, they might thank me. I get thanked at the end of classes sometimes. There's no accounting for taste. But they shouldn't be thanking me, right? They should be thanking you. Please view this as a process, and please understand that you are part of a big, wonderful thing that happens in Champaign-Urbana every year, and has happened every year for over 100 years, right? So if you view it that way, then the fact that I might be a bumbling idiot on the week where we talk about credible commitment won't seem so awful to you, because maybe I'll do better on credible commitment week next time after you've told me that I was an idiot. Don't say idiot. I'm very sensitive. I'm an artist, okay? Look around me. I'm an artist. It's a real honor for me when you just think about all of the wonderful thinkers that have come through Champaign-Urbana. Hey, we're on YouTube right now. 2 of the founders of YouTube were U of I students. Somebody taught them badly. They were part of a prototyped class. Some idiotic second-year assistant professor didn't get credible commitment right, or whatever the analog was in the computer science department, right? So we're all part of this process. Be an active part. I'm begging you. And all I can give you are my apologies and my gratitude. The fact that I'm a guinea pig too, that's something that we have in common right now. I hope it won't be the only thing we have in common, and I hope that we learn about those as the class goes. But please know that I will do everything in my power for this to be a real University of Illinois class with real work and real content and real problem sets. And the best I can do is to try to help you work with one another so that you can have a full, rich experience while learning a whole lot about international relations and game theory in the process. Don't get me wrong on that. But I want you to get more than that. I want you to have a real college experience the same way I would in any other class that you took. So let's work together. Let's prototype. Let's collaborate. Let's be part of this community together. Let's leave the place better than we found it. So just to wrap up, PS 398 will be delivered online. In order to counteract any of the annoyances associated with online learning, we'll be employing a flipped classroom. So you will be watching videos like this one that have the lecture content for the week, sometime over the weekend or early in the week. And then on Monday and Wednesday mornings, you'll have an hour and 15 minutes to ask questions about the lecture or about your problem set, which you do each week, either to me or to the grader, or to your fellow students if they're feeling especially enterprising. So those problem sets you'll have a chance to work on together with me the whole time. You'll have a take-home final, that if you've developed your muscles with lots of effort during those problem sets, the take-home final shouldn't be too big of a deal. The majority of your grade will come from the weekly problem sets. You'll be able to drop a few. This class centers on the interesting marriage between game theory and international relations, where the tradition of rationalist or strategic international relations goes back way further than game theory does, but game theory has really enhanced our understanding of the associated concepts. It promises to be a really fun time, and I'm really looking forward to teaching you. There's no way that I've answered every possible question that you might have about the class, so if you have any more questions about the class, feel free to let me know on Piazza, or send me an email at rjc@illinois.edu with more specific or personal questions if you have them. I'll let you know when the syllabus has been posted, which I hope will be sometime soon, and you'll have all of the details that you'll need to finalize your scheduling decisions. I'm really looking forward to meeting all of you sometime soon. Thanks for watching. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is terrifying. I'm pretty sure I'm an idiot. Okay.